We are truly grateful for your presence today and for taking the time to join us for the press conference. As you are all aware, we are approaching the conclusion of the 9th annual meeting of the new Development Bank. And we are particularly pleased to have held this meeting in such a beautiful and inspiring city of Cape Town. At this time, I would like to take a moment to introduce members of the bank's management. Madame Dilma Rousseff, the President of the New Development Bank. Mr. Vladimir Kazbekov, Vice President and Chief Operating Officer. Mr. Anil Kishora, Vice President and Chief Risk Officer. Vice President Tianwu Zhou, Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer. And Vice President Manale Ratsoma, Vice President and Chief Financial Officer. Now we are ready to open the floor for your questions, but first we need to notify you that today we have only 30 minutes for this press conference. When you ask your question, kindly raise your hand, state your media, and state your name, identify the media outlet you represent. Now we are ready to begin. Please. My colleague will pass the microphone to you. Anyone? Yes, please.
Good morning, Madam President. It's TASS News Agency, Vitaly Makachev. I would like to know if you will travel to Kazan for the BRICS Summit and will NDB present its report to the participants of the summit in Kazan. Thank you.
I would answer in Portuguese because for me is more easy. And there is a translation to all the people present here. De fato, eu vou...
Actually, I'm going to Kazan. As usual, we attend the summit, the President and the VPs. We attend the BRICS Summit, which is the meeting of the countries that are part of BRICS. So in this meeting, the bank always delivers a report to the leaders of the government that are part of the BRICS platform. So this will happen next October, which is the BRICS Summit.
Thank you, Madam President. Please, any further questions?
Hilary Joffe here from Business Day newspaper in Johannesburg. Has the New Development Bank decided to admit any new members to the bank? And who are they, if you have? And I think it was said at one of the earlier sessions that there were a number of countries who were interested in joining the bank. Can you give us any sense of how many countries have applied or have asked to join the bank, and what criteria you apply to decide on whether countries can be members of the bank? Thanks.
The bank has an expansion policy among its main goals, especially an expansion policy for the Global South countries. So we have many applications by many countries. I cannot actually, I don't have mandate to publicize the names of the countries that have applied to be part of the bank because of being delicate in terms of the conditions that are going to be accepted or not. So it would not be agreeable to say that they have applied and they haven't been accepted, right? The fact is that we now, the bank is made up of a board of directors and a board of governors, and also the management. So we have a process to authorize new members to the bank that goes through the country applying, and then the management will do all the procedures to assess the conditions of the country in terms of how many shares, and the participation, and then this is passed on to the board of governors and the board of directors. Recently, we actually had a country that was accepted, and I believe that since the board of governors and directors have already authorized, they joined the bank. It's Algeria. Algeria was authorized to join the bank, so Algeria has been authorized to become a member of the bank, the new development bank. So the criteria to become a member this does not mean that this is automatic, that they are already part of BRICS or vice versa. Even if they're part of BRICS, they're going to be part of the bank. I mean, each of these two entities have their own rules, and they have different processes for joining. So we have authorized Algeria to become a member.
Thank you, Madam President. Next question, please, this gentleman.
Edward West of the Business Report newspaper. One of the topics that's come up through the meeting quite often, which I gather is a new development within the bank this year, is the use of local currency. Perhaps one of you could explain, just sort of very short, what about that?
Local currency goes, it's been around since the beginning of the bank, actually. So what is that? What is it about, like local currencies? This has to do with the fact that if you think of the founding members of the new development bank, the use of local currency has to do with the need to increase of financing for member countries, not only for infrastructure, but also logistics, digital logistics, social infrastructure, and all the investments in infrastructure, as well as in financing, how can I put it, in financing climate protection actions and fighting against the climate change. Why? Because the countries of the Global South, the EMDC, what happens is that when you invest by using hard currency, especially for the private sector, they have a hard time contracting these loans because the revenue through these investments, and it is a revenue that they would use to pay back the debt, it is in local currency. And the debt is in hard currency. So what happens to the hard currency? It's subjected to the fluctuations that have to do with the monetary policy of the developed countries. For example, when there is any change, as it has happened not long ago, when the monetary policy of the United States of America, of the Federal Reserve, changed from quantitative easing to tightening. That means increasing the interest rate, which had an impact on the USD by appreciating it. Usually, the private sector has a hard time of paying back the debt. So why local currencies? Because then you would have a loan in the same currency as you have to pay back the debt. So that would make easier the participation of the private sector in all the investment processes. So this is the idea behind it. So in our strategic program or plan for between 2022 and 2026, we have established a goal for local currency of 30%. So we haven't still met this goal, but we're in the process of meeting it. And today, we basically have two currencies that the bank has been having the possibility of having local currency financing. That is renminbi, CNY, or ZAR. So we want to expand the use of local currency to the other countries that are part of NDB. So this is going to be important because this is going to help us meet another goal, which is the goal of loaning to the private sector, which would be very difficult to the private sector to take on the financing in USD and paying back in any other currency that's not a convertible currency.
Next question, please. Yes, we have this gentleman. Desiree, sorry, not gentleman.
Good afternoon, Paul Vecchiato from Bloomberg. Can you give us an idea of your goals to loan to countries and private sector around the world in your strategic plan? So what are the goals that you've set? You've already mentioned the 30% in local currencies. So give us an idea there, please.
For us, it is really important the participation of financing in private sector. So our goal for the private sector is 30% as well. So we want the bank to have financing in this amount, especially because if you have a base with sovereign investment and non-sovereign investment, we would have more capacity to help and provide support to the our member countries when it comes to investing in long-term investments. So we need this mix in terms of private investment, public investment, to make sure that we have investment in infrastructure, which demands a lot of capital, so that we can make sure that this investment can have a long-term funding, because it is impossible for you to invest in infrastructure in 5 years. I mean, depending, you need like 15, 20, or 30 years. So usually around 15 years, this is more in lighter infrastructure. For instance, I don't know, a gas, not a thermal, actually renewable energy plant, for instance, or I don't know, or solar energy plant, or wind energy plant. It's like 15 years that you need. But when it comes to thermal or gas and combined cycle, it's like 20 years. For hydroelectric, it's 30 years. For a railway, depending on the distance, on the length of the railway, would be around like 30 years as well. For roads and bridges and other similar structures, is the same. It's less. But for you to make a difference when it comes to energy transition, you need more time. You need the participation of the public sector and the private sector as well.
President, please, next question. This side. Yes, pass the microphone.
Good afternoon, Lamise Umarji from News 24. I see you guys have extended or approved loans over the past, before this meeting. I am curious on the portfolio for South Africa, the environmental protection project for Medupi thermal power plant from 2019 was cancelled. Is there any reason? Can you provide, when that decision was made and why?
Obrigada pela pergunta.
Thank you for the question. I turn it over to our COO to answer this question. VP Kaspakov, please.
See, I will provide certain broad answer on the role of South African portfolio within DB to I think some of the question in future could be related, the same. As for the moment, overall portfolio of NDB through the all member countries, like 33.5 billion US dollars, and we have in total 140 projects. As for African portfolio in particular, South African portfolio, if you add the last approval, 1 billion for this water project in South Africa, total amount for South Africa is for the moment 6.8 billion project approved and disbursed more than like $3.6 billion already disbursed. In particular, is for that cancellation issue, modernization of that generation station, electric generation station. I should say this is standard process in NDB. The moment by that project was provided for South Africa with sovereign guarantees, the moment borrow of no interest, we just by the proposal of the borrower that project could be cancelled. That's normal. If not started, it's easily to be cancelled. That's the simple answer. As for other part of South African portfolio, that the last approval, that's very interesting project for us because this is for improvement of water supply through the different municipalities in the South Africa. Then the previous 1 billion PEC approved for Transnet for modernization of rolling stocks and other matters. And the first disbursement for 5 billion rands just signed by President in front of the guests and board members day before yesterday. You can witness it. That's pictures on the South African portfolio. Then we have a number of projects already completed, non-sovereign with the DBSA and IDC, greenhouse gas emission reduction with NDB with the DBSA for 300 million, that project already completed. Renewable energy sector development project with IDC also completed. It's a quite good and effective project. So by our assessment, overall South African portfolio, more robust, normal one. We're developing smoothly. And we consider few operations, new operations in South Africa in particular. Today we had a very good energy seminar and we expect quite practical outcome of this discussion. And before we committed for 3 billion investment in South African government just transition program. That's why we think that some of the project could be developed on the basis of that discussion. And that's why we invited professionals and engineers from the member country to share their experience with the Ministry of Energy and Electricity of South Africa, in particular in that sector, transmission sector. And then we can see. We will look at this development with close attention because we hope to get new project from, and then we are ready to provide financial support for project preparation and use investment from project preparation fund to prepare project within this just transition program, and in particular that for transition, for grid, yes, in South Africa.
Thank you, Vice President. Next question, please. Anyone?
Hi, Lisa Murty here from Daily Maverick. So the 5 billion rand loan that you announced this week for Transnet, what is the restructure period and the interest rate that will be paid back over?
You see, we can look at the loan agreement. I can't remember exactly these rates. It's on the website. It's not. You can easily look at this matter. And this is just for first tranche. The total cost of the project, of this approved project, 1 billion USD. 5 billion rands is just first part, first tranche. And just to avoid any further question on the matter of pricing, one of the outcome of this BOD and BOG, we just have this day before yesterday, we approved a new sovereign pricing framework, and we hope to be even more competitive on the market than before, both for sovereign and sovereign. This hard currency and local currency altogether. That's all.
Thank you, Vice President. Next question, please. Any hands? Yes, please.
Paul Vecchio from Bloomberg again. Could you just tell us how the capital for these transactions, where does it come from? Does it come from the New Development Bank's own reserve holdings, or do you use other market mechanisms such as raising capital with your size and presence in other markets and bring them into a local market? Thank you.
You mean the source of liquidity for the project?
That's right.
Yeah, I have my colleague, say local guy, Manali, but it's easier. It's easy to explain. We have access to international capital market. We use a market of South Africa to issue rand bonds in rands, South African rands, and we issue CNY pounder bonds in China. So we have all market instruments, including loans and private placement, whatever, depending on the situation. And if further question, please, Manak.
Yes, I think that's perfectly correct. And we also do swaps. I think sometimes the market is favorable for us to swap from US dollars to local currency in transition, and plans to maybe issue, in this case, if we have a disbursement and we're still in the process of issuing ZAR, then we can do a swap in the interim period. So we've got a number of tools that we use to fund.
Eu gostaria de acrescentar.
I want to add the following. Every bank, the New Development Bank is a solid bank. And just like in MDB, we don't use the paid-in capital. We actually go to the market and we raise funds. We raise funds in all currencies, in USD, Euro, in SAR, CNY, and all the possible currencies. So we cannot use our paid-in capital, because this would be, the bank would lose quality if we did that. So we can't do it. And we have a low level of leverage, and we have our parameters are very sound and solid. Maybe VP CRO Anil Kishore, maybe he wants to talk about how robust our parameters are.
Thank you, President. So regarding this, our lending, if the question from Bloomberg is about how we fund the loan assets, it has already been explained, but I'll just give you certain clarifications or amplify the ideas around capital. As per our model, multilateral, we try to hold the highest possible credit rating, external credit rating. so that we are able to borrow at the cheapest possible rates so that our member countries benefit from that. And to that extent, we have to maintain very high quality of our portfolio, as also very high quality of assets, liquid assets, so that in case of need, the market thinks that we are in a position to repay it at short notice. So our idea is to hold our capital in highly liquid assets and maintain high, what we call primary liquidity ratios. With this, we are able to maintain our rating, external rating, at the desired level, and that allows us to tap the markets globally and use that money raised at competitive rates to fund developmental projects and get the impact that we want to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President.
And may I ask just one follow-up question, if that's... Oh, sorry.
As we are approaching the end of the press conference, we have time just for
Vitaly
two
Makshev.
questions.
Sorry, Vitaly Makshev with the Times News Agency. Where will take place the next annual meeting? In which country?
The next annual meeting will be in Brazil, because Brazil takes on the presidency of BRICS next year. No.
For NDB,
Eu pensei que ele estava...
I thought he was asking about the BRICS. It's about the BRICS or about NDB?
to be in Brazil. Chairmanship, NDB moved to Brazil.
So it will be in Brazil.
Yes, thank you. And now probably the last question, please.
He wants.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. You talked a bit about local currencies and that. Could you give us a short summary of your views of various currencies? For instance, we've seen the South African rand do remarkably well since the national elections in May. There's some issues around the US dollar at the moment, and that. So could you give us a short summary of the bank's views on various currencies, please?
O banco é
It's very simple, the view of the bank. The bank thinks that it is crucial to diversify the use of local currency if we want actually to have a greater presence of private sector. I mean, if sovereign loans is less sensitive because countries have sovereign guarantees from the country. So when it comes to the private sector, there's some more fragility. The word in English is mismatch. So what would be mismatch? Is that you have your revenue in a currency and you have your debt in another currency. So what happens to a business person? So when they take loans at an interest rate and an exchange rate. And all of a sudden, let's say, if it is a situation where the interest rate goes up and the exchange rate goes up too, the loan that they took will increase, will be more expensive. So they'll need more rands to pay back the same amount of US dollars because of these changes. So what we think is, okay, we don't think about using only one alternative. The idea is that we need to work with local currencies and also with funding in hard currencies like Euro, USD, and all the other currencies. So the use of local currency has a very clear objective, which is to increase the capacity of funding to the private sector. Basically, that's it. So we want to provide the private sector conditions to take loans from NDB in local currency, because it is easier for them. I mean, if they take the loan in rand, for instance, to pay back in rand. Though there's no possibility of having what we call mismatch. And that's why we say that this is a diversification process of our basket of currencies. Of course, this can't be for 100% of the bank. That's why our objective is 30% in local currency. Today we have two currencies that are being raised, are being loaned to the countries, and some actually with the possibility of doing swaps between countries. That would be rent and CNY, the Chinese currency, yuan. So we're able to raise in these two currencies. The idea is to do the same with rupees, Brazilian real, and all the other currencies that are part of our area of operation, basically of those countries that are members of NDB. I mean, it's not complicated when it's simply a way of facilitating private investments.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today for this press conference. We have to conclude. Unfortunately, we don't have more time for this due to the very tight agenda of our senior management. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Vice Presidents. Thank you. Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect. Great.